Hi guys, good morning. Today we're going to talk about the Pi2 design Mercury 3 versus the Holo Audio Red. These are network streamers that feed DACs. I'm not really going to talk about how they work or what they do. There are plenty of other YouTube videos that tell us, what they are, go over the features. I'm just going to keep this really short. Concentrate on the sound and maybe a few other pertinent things. So, first thing is, when the Holo Red came out, it was kind of the bee's knees. It was helped by spectacular measurements from Cameron Golden Sound. And I remember once there's a forum member who argued with another member. I think there's one guy who got an ERD and said, hey, I have the shit ERD and I have this, but I prefer the sound of the ERD. But then again, like, the Red's supposed to be the best thing ever because of great measurements. And again, this is not Cameron's doing. Cameron's pretty neutral about stuff. He just takes the measurements and presents us with the data. Offers his 2 cents on what he thinks. But anyway, I can kind of understand why someone might prefer the ERD over the Red. I'm actually not a big fan of the ERD myself. But I think the point I'm trying to make is that these things sound different. And we all have different preferences of what we like. So I think it's important that we take this into context. The Mercury 3, right? The Mercury 3 is an evolution from the Mercury 1. It's actually a pretty decent step up. The Mercury 1 itself was a small incremental step over the Pi2 AES in terms of having a blacker background, fine detail, better sense of space, fluidity. These things are typical with going to sort of a better quote transport. The Mini 3 basically has a miniature version of Atomic Bob's noise nuke. It's basically a choke and a cap. Chokes are kind of like a brute force approach to reducing noise in the power supply. And the Mercury, I know, uses a switch power supply, and those things tend to be really noisy. There are a lot of ultrasonics, and it definitely does change the sound. I did have a full noise nuke in a Pi2 AES, and I didn't necessarily like that. It was more different. I felt it smoothed things over a bit too much. With the Mercury 3, it seems just right. So, test conditions, what I did here, I've got Volumio running on the Mercury and the standard Red OS running on the Holo. So I'm just trying to do an apples to apples comparison. Both of these units were wired, and I used Rune. Now, the one, I think one thing I should point out is the Mercury will work with Wi-Fi. It's got a little wireless thing built in. The Holo, you have to have it wired to an Ethernet line. At the end of the day, I just preferred the Mercury. The presentation was like the ET3 CD transport that I have. It's hard to describe. It's fluid, stately, very controlled, mellow. You could even say it's kind of dark. The Red is overall warmer, but the thing that really got me was its energetic upper mids and slightly grainier highs. Over longer listening sessions, I kind of found the upper mids kind of glary and sharp, and even though it's warmer, it just didn't sound right. In terms of technicalities, I felt they were equal, in terms of resolution, stage, fine detail, all that stuff. As I was thinking about it, the system I used to evaluate it was a Gungnir 1. This is the A2 plus the Eddy Current 45 Custom. The DAC that I'm using can be a little bit tweaked in the upper mid, so I'm thinking, maybe that's the fault, right? So I switched over to the Gungnir 2, which is much more mellow. It's kind of wet sounding, almost tubey, and still with a Holo Red, it was the same deal. I mean, there's a little bit more warmth, more body. That's fine, but it just the upper mids, lower treble, they just kind of bothered me. So again, I know my experience here, right? It runs against the grain. I'm not like slamming it at all. Doesn't mean it's bad. I think it still could be preferences, synergies, setups, other things. I do know that many users who have the Red, do run special Linux distributions and use special, optical internet fiber doodads, and with Oompa Loompas and all that stuff. I mean, you can roll all sorts of stuff on there to really kind of optimize it. But, you know, then again, I'm looking at the Mercury. Maybe you could do that with the Mercury too. So, I mean, I just want to close to say, hey, look, I have not explored everything. I'm probably not. I just don't have enough time. These days, I'm just trying to find some time to relax. So, you know, besides, there's always something better. You know, maybe I've heard good things about the iFi streamer. That's quite a bit more expensive than these. It's a little bit over 1,000. But anyway, these are going on a loaner program. So the loaner program on Super Best Audio Friends. So you're going to get a lot more different opinions from me probably. And I'm going to leave it at that. So again, thanks a lot, guys. Don't forget to subscribe and give me a like.